500 million years ago. The microcontinent was situated near the equator. The Western scientists called it Kazakhstania. The structure with almost full list of elements from the Mendeleev table inside its depth. What secrets does Kazakhstan soil have? How rich is it? Natural resources are the history of our land for thousands of years.
There is a place with unique and beautiful nature, located in Kazakhstan, part of the Altai Mountains. It is Katon-Karagay district of the East Kazakhstan region. This is the place where inaccessible peaks, great cedars, evergreen pine trees, fast-flowing rivers, clear lakes and alpine meadows with rare flowers spread at the border of Kazakhstan, Russia, China and Mongolia, near the everlasting glaciers of the Beluga mountain. Outstandingly beautiful landscapes are situated on the area of over 13,000 square kilometers. And it is not coincidence that Katon-Karagay National Park is located on this very area. It was founded on 17th of July 2001 with the aim to study and store the objects of natural and cultural heritage, native landscapes of the South Altai, as well as to arrange ecological tourist routes. The idea to create a national park was born in the 80s of the last century, when within Geology Survey, the Ak-Alakin group of tantalum and lithium deposits was discovered. Taiga paths, dense pine forests, huge number of small springs and rivers, crossing hollows overgrown with moss and bushes, and mountains surrounding the region. In this place, one can really feel that life on our planet Earth has not been fully studied yet, and everything on its surface and inside its bowels is most likely to hide millions of secrets. As geologists say, these landscapes owe their diversity to the mountains of this part of East Kazakhstan region that are very young, and it means they continue to develop and grow. An active process of fault formation is still going on there. And there are earthquakes there and so on. That's why these young mountains naturally have sharp terrain lines, being raised slightly, right? And of course, due to big elevations going on there, these mountains start being exposed to erosions or being washed out.
Потому что уклон рельефа очень сложный, крутой, так?
There are rapid rivers, as the terrain incline is complicated and steep, and fast-flowing rivers wash out deep canyons, and lakes are formed in cavities. That's why the terrain lines look sharp.
Ярко, так сказать, выражено.
After climbing high and crossing depths of seemingly impenetrable forest, you suddenly find yourself near a waterfall. This is a small cascade located at the Yazovaya River, and it is also called Yazovy. The river itself is the right inflow of the Belaya Berel. Near 2 kilometers away to the south of the same name lake, the river cuts into a massive cliff of granite rocks, splitting it with a small gorge. It was formed as a result of centuries-long water activity, and now numerous cascades of this flow fall down. They change each other to meet again after 200 meters. In the south of the Yazvel Lake, at the border of Russia and Kazakhstan, there is a series of mountain ridges with Beluga Peak in its central glaciation point. This is the highest peak of the Altai Mountains, which crowns the Katun Ridge. The Kazakhstan-Russia border goes through the Beluga Massif. The meaning of the peak name reflects the abundance of snow covering the mountain from the very foot to its peak. When the weather is fine, Beluga and the nearest smaller mountains are reflected in the waters of the lake that is located 1,686 meters high above the sea level in the mountain fold along which one of the Katun Glacier Ridge stretches out. The lake is 3 kilometers long, 800 meters wide and 10 meters deep. The water color is yellow and green due to silt and algae that fill the water body. The shores consist of sand, pebble and rubble. By the way, the Belaya-Birel River begins from here. The word Belaya, which is an adjective and means white, is not just some poetic expression. The water has white toned color as it flows over calcareous rocks. By washing away the coat, water acquires unusual color. The riverheads of the Belaya-Birel or Akbirel begin at the Birel Glacier, which is located on the Beluga mountain. But this mountain is famous not only for its sacred origin, but also tangible artifacts. The bridge across the river connected the famous Kokkol mine with residential areas of the regional settlements. In this very mine, located high in the mountains, molybdenum and wolfram were extracted in the 30s of the last century. For a long time, the Altai has been known as the cradle of the Turkic civilization. It is the Katon-Karagay area through which the famous northern branch of the Great Silk Road once went through. Caravans loaded with Altai bronze, Scythian and Arimaspian gold followed the route heading to the west. Gold, copper and tin. At all times, these metals have been closely associated with the Altai. And it was here where an outstanding, marvelous and important burial site of ancient civilizations' rulers was once discovered. At the present moment, we are in a valley which is called the Valley of the Kings, similar to the one located in the Egyptian Giza. It means that during the early Iron Age, an ancient pantheon was situated here. This is a place where only rulers were buried. It was forbidden to graze cattle here or do any other household things. It was a sacred and tabooed place. So we can see that this place has a unique nature. We are on the terrace. This is the second terrace of the Bukhtarmar River. And there is a sort of natural limitations. And even today, the local people can feel sacred atmosphere created by this valley. The archaeologists get a lot of data about ancient metallurgy from the burial sites. As specialists think, East Kazakhstan is unique in this regard. For example, the Bronze Age had lasted till the 5th-4th century BC due to rich earth's bellows and ore deposits containing tin and copper that were used to produce alloy known as bronze. According to the contemporary research, ancient mineralogists were skilled enough to understand how to search for ores and where deposits of valuable minerals were located. They were professional craftsmen who might even have maps they used to discover deposits. In addition, ancient people living in East Kazakhstan also possessed special technologies of metal mining and processing. If speaking about melting technologies, their level of skills was very high, even taking nowadays standards. Our restoration artists, working in modern laboratories and using the latest technologies of American, Russian, and German producers, cannot fully restore some sophisticated items, which the ancient craftsmen made with their hands. We find some molds. We rarely find molds used for melting, but we process the item very roughly, while the work should be done in very delicate, an accurate way. And the art style of Saka Scythian and Saka Siberian craftsmen is so popular around the world, and it's hard to find analogs.
Аналогов его практически нету.
An amazing stone monument of human and geological history is located in the other part of East Kazakhstan region, 38 kilometers away from the regional center. Akbaur means white liver. Specialists think that these isolated hills, formed with big stones that had become flat-shaped after many years of erosion, were used for several purposes.
Сам по себе памятник относится к эпохе неолита, где-то
The monument dates back to the Neolithic era, or 5th-3rd millennium BC, and it is unique because there are cave drawings made with mineral paint, red ochre, on the eastern wall of the grotto.
красной охрой. Всего здесь в композиции насчет
The whole composition includes near 80 elements or symbols. The main elements are dots, circles, and crosses. There are also more complicated forms, including figures of goat depicted upside down, carved, some primitive triangle houses resembling wigwams, and so on.
треугольной формы. Ну и так далее.
That is why this place is so interesting. Besides here, at the Akbaur, we have a place the archaeologists consider a ritual ground. They think that in ancient times, this place was used to perform different rituals. And in order to conduct these rituals, the priests had to observe astronomic objects, among which the sun was the main one. That was how a second version of Akbaur history appeared. According to it, this place is an ancient observatory. To observe stars, the ancient astronomers used holes, cracks, and cuts in stones formed by nature. The grotto walls contain yellow granite, and scientists still don't have a common opinion about whether this monument was handmade or strange but valuable geological discovery made by ancient people living in this region. This monument is located at the branch of the Kalbin Highland. It is an interesting plateau as it consists of granite and sand rocks. At the same time, the local land is also characterized with content of shale rocks.
Калбинское Нагорье интересно тем, что имеет своеобразную такую структуру.
The Kalbin Highland is an interesting place as it has an interesting structure, fault and block structure. That is why the local terrain and landscape are very interesting as they have such fantastic forms. Erosion, rain, and other factors had their impact. And as a result, such weird forms of rocks were formed.
Калбинское Нагорье очень богато
The Kalbin Highland is rich with minerals, in particular polymetallic ores, as well as copper and tin. And copper and tin are key elements to produce an alloy known as bronze. During the Bronze Age, here on the Kalbin Highland, such powerful cultural center appeared. Monuments of the Andronova period, as well as burial places and settlements were discovered here. Thus, Kalba is a regional cultural center which had influence on the surroundings as well.
влияние и на какую-то периферию уже.
For the Andronova tribes living along the Upper Irtysh during the Bronze Age, the most progressive craft was mining and metallurgy. They produced not less than 10 tons of bronze per year. And this volume, which is small if taken the modern standards, made East Kazakhstan one of the largest centers of metallurgy of North Asia and Eastern Europe. For the human civilization, this region played the role of some technological and experimental platform, which had underwent long and difficult way of geological development. That is why it is notable for its tectonic complexity and age diversity of structural elements. The belows of this region were formed in different periods and under various geological conditions. For example, sediment, metamorphic, and magmatic formations belong to the lower and upper Paleozoic era. These are sandstones, siltstones, and limestones. There are also younger structures formed in the result of tectonic movements that happened later.
Морфология наблюдаемого рельефа, она обусловлена, несколькими причинами. Одна из важных
The content of the observed terrain was caused by several factors. One of the main ones is tectonic movements of the Earth's crust, of course. The second factor is formation structure, showing if the rocks are solid, resistant against erosion, and etc. That's why the Kalbin Ridge is the first to come into mind.
бросается
These mountains are large and contain stone plates. These mountains are granite.
с таким
Granite massif intruded into the axis zone of this, as I already mentioned, cavity, an ancient cavity I would say.
внедрился,
It is a synclinal cavity, if speaking in geological terms.
как я говорю,
These mountains that are more resistant to erosion raise in the form of the ridge, and siltstones containing sediment rocks are softer. And it was natural that they're eroded and washed away, being exposed in cavities inside these granite rocks.
поднимается хребтом.
Today, as well as many thousands of years ago, the territory of this region attracts geologists with its bowels. The specialists think that rich deposits of wolfram can be found in the southeast zone of the region. The geological history of how this crust content was formed gives evidence for that. The formation of this territory began during the Carboniferous period. During that time, Big Sea was raging here, and sediment rocks, including carbonates, sandstones, and carbonaceous shales, were formed on its bottom. And wolfram is related exactly to carbonate sediments. This mineral is called scheelite.
Появился он здесь таким образом. Здесь по геофизическим данным на глубине около километра.
The mineral appeared here in the following way. Based on geophysical data, there is a granite intrusive body located at the depth of 1 kilometer. It contains all these ores, siltstones, sandstones, and carbonates. Their volume is not so big. They were affected by temperature and thermal springs. There was an input of wolfram and other components, but we're particularly interested in wolfram.
Интрузия внедрялась, по трещинам гидротермальные растворы проникали.
When this intrusive body went into cracks, hydrothermal solutions got closer to the surface, and so-called skarn rocks were formed. But they are not real. They're skarnoids.
Известнякам. А здесь по карбонат содержащим породам. Поэтому это имеется
As skarns are usually formed over limestones, while skarnoids cover carbonate-containing rocks. So the mineral we explore is concentrated in these skarns. This is scheelite, which has the formula calcium wolfram O4.
кальций, вольфрам О4.
In addition to all complicated geophysical transformations, this territory experienced some other changes. Some part of it has raised, forming a sort of a dome over the Earth's surface. The rocks formed during the Carboniferous period and influenced by hot underground springs lifted up. And in the very center of this dome, geologists presently explore minerals containing wolfram.
Вольфрам, все знают, это элемент
Everybody knows wolfram. The element is churlish. Its melting temperature is near 3,500 degrees. So due to its specifics, it is used, for example, to produce electric bulbs that we all know. Till the recent time, it was the key element of the electric bulbs. Then it is also an alloying additive to steel. It means that if containing wolfram, steel acquires other properties, becoming more durable. In other words, this is armor.
броня, грубо говоря.
It's interesting that humans learned how to extract metal from ores and stones thousands of years ago. But even earlier stones covering steppes and mountains had become irreplaceable helpers for people in distant journeys. Nomads made such kind of heaps out of flat stones on top of the hills as landmarks, which were a sort of road guides for those who went to distant areas across wide open spaces. And the higher the heap, the older were generations that had built it. Later, these handmade heaps acquired a sacred sense. People made wishes and added their share in the form of one more stone. And during modern times, these heaps helped geologists to search for valuable minerals. These stones represent different kinds of rocks gathered in one place. The East Kazakhstan region is unique for its resources of metal-bearing ores. The region is surrounded by 3 ore belts: Altai, which includes 5 zones, Zharma-Saur, with 3 zones, and Chingis-Tarbagatai, with its 2 ore zones. Near 130 deposits of mineral resources have been discovered and are currently mined in the territory of the region. Among them are deposits of polymetallic and rare earth ores, coal, oil, and oil shale, as well as precious and semi-precious. But the region also possesses another treasure, which is water resources. Over 2,000 lakes are located in the territory of the region. On the whole, 40% of the country's water resources are situated in East Kazakhstan.
Восточный Казахстан обладает значительными водными ресурсами. Согласно
East Kazakhstan possesses significant water resources. Based on the data of Water Registry, there are over 1,200 rivers in the region. The largest river is Irtysh, where we are at the moment.
на котором мы сейчас
The Irtysh River is over 100 kilometers long. Out of 1,200, 885 rivers are between 10 and 100 kilometers long, and 23 are over 100 kilometers long.
имеет порой
Irtysh has right and left bank inflows. The largest right bank inflows are Ulba, Buktarma, Uba, and Kurchum. Among the largest left bank inflows are Chagan and Kızılsu.
Кызылсу.
3 largest hydroelectric power stations of the country were built at the rivers of the region. They are Ust-Kamenogorskaya, Ulbinskaya, and Bukhtarminskaya power stations. They were constructed in the middle of the 20th century. And the history of the city that became a center of one of the richest regions is directly connected with the deposits of minerals and water resources. Ust-Kamenogorsk. The fortress, which became a foundation of the future city, was built in the beginning of the 18th century, when hunters for golden sand came here. The first walls of Ust-Kamenogorsk fortress were put at the place where the Ulba River flows into Irtysh, which breaks out of the creek between the stone mountains and slowly brings its waves along the valley. The history of the city and region is the history of discovered deposits, mined gold, silver, and polymetallic ores. It is the history connected with the names of geologists who were path breakers. Decades after the foundation of the fortress, Ust-Kamenogorsk was called the Gates of Rudny Altai. The city became an important and large center from where expeditions began their journey to study and explore Rudny and South Altai. Then the city became a transit point for cargoes delivered by horses and ships to the metallurgic plants. By the beginning of the 20th century, Ust-Kamenogorsk became a center of gold mining industry in Kazakh part of the Altai. According to official estimations, during the whole history, near 700 tons of gold were extracted from the local mines. Today, Ust-Kamenogorsk is still considered a center of non-ferrous metallurgy of modern Kazakhstan. And according to the specialists, the reserves of this land should be evaluated. That is why the process of exploration works is actively performed in the region at the present.
Восточно-Казахстанская область имеет значительный потенциал минерально-сырьевых ресурсов.
East Kazakhstan region has a significant potential of mineral resources. All of these give reasons to expect that due to conduction of exploration works, new prospective occurrences of ore mineralization will be found to provide sustainability of the regional mining industry and metallurgical companies.
И металлургических предприятий области.
The history of the Earth's crust formation in this part of the planet is really unique. Millions of years ago, 2 parts of the land collided to form a new one, and it continues to move within the time. The same way, young mountains born as a result of collision continue to grow, accumulating a new potential for life of East Kazakhstan.